This is Main Street with Gary Allen. Now, here's Gary.
And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Main Street. Special day, special time. My regular producer, Andres, is on his way to Paris or on vacation or something. So we have a substitute producer, Mr. Mike, is joining us today. So, new time, new day just for today. Next week, we'll be back at 2 p.m. on Tuesday with Main Street, as we do every week. We have an exciting show for you today. But before we get to that, let me, first of all, say thank you to a number of people. My executive producer, Rick Del Vecchio. Without him, I wouldn't be able to do this show. My studio producer today is Mike. I also want to thank Michael and Grant Miller for C News Network for giving me this platform in order to do this show on. They have some great guests, our community sponsors, the Japanese Gardens of Miami, as well as the Elk Lodges of South Florida. I want to thank them very much. And all of you out there for taking the time to join us. I hope you've had a great week. I hope your Easter holidays and Passover holidays have been good ones and safe ones for you and your family. There was supposed to be another gentleman on this show today, Mr. Glenn Hirsch. I'm going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes with Mr. Chris DiPetta. My very first guest, my only guest for today, is a gentleman I've known for a number of years. He is, in the comedy world, a king. No doubt about it. He's a kingmaker. If he likes you, he'll put you on in his comedy club, The Punchline in Atlanta, where he has owned that club since its infancy. He's also been a consultant at the Improv in Los Angeles, New York, all around the country, Catch a Rising Star, and many comedy clubs throughout this entire country. He is Billy Gardell's manager, and Billy has the brand new season for Bob Love's Abishola. I think I got that right. Chris will correct me if I'm wrong. The show is on tonight. I think it's the new season, or it's just a continuation of this season. And he used to also be Jeff Foxworthy's manager, as well as Steve Harvey's manager. He is, like I said, a kingmaker. If he likes you, you will be on his card at the Punchline in Atlanta, and he will also help you in your career. He has a business that we will discuss, which helps people in their career, because, actors and show business people, we do the show, but we don't understand the business end, and that's where this gentleman comes in. So without further ado, would you please welcome my good friend, Mr. Chris DiPetta.
Hello, Gare.
Hello, Chris. How are you? Was I right with tonight's show? Is it a continuation of the season?
It's a new show tonight. It's on 8:30 Eastern time on CBS.
And I've seen a couple of the shows. Usually there's a sports event going on that catches my eye. No offense to Billy, but I love my sports. I mean, my Phillies came to town in Miami and we're limping out of town. We lost 3 out of 4. So, I mean, things haven't changed for the Phillies. They still can't win anything. Chris, as I said also at the beginning of the introduction, another gentleman was supposed to join us today, Mr. Glenn Hirsch. And Glenn's mother passed away at the end of last week. So obviously this is not the thing that's on Glenn's mind. But I want to offer my condolences to the family, as I did on Facebook, and I did speak to Glenn myself. The show will always be here. We will always be here for you, Glenn. Just get past this, and we'll always be here on the phone whenever you need us, whenever you want to talk to us. And I know Chris, he's an old dear friend of yours. Yeah. Glenn Hirsch is one of those funny guys. He's also one of the nicest guys in the business. I know when I first got started, he greeted me with, like Rich Schneider did, with open arms and, hey, welcome. He wasn't snotty. He wasn't competitive and worrying about if I was going to take something from him. He was so far ahead of me. It was insane. But we do offer our condolences out to the Hirsch family, and our prayers are with you. And we can't wait to have you on the show. And when he does, we'll have Chris back, and maybe I'll even be able to get Schneider back. I don't know. If Rich is getting suddenly very, very, very busy. You have owned the Punchline since what, 1982?
82 is when we opened. Okay, I was gone for a little while because I went to New York and ran Catch a Rising Star for a year, and then opened then I parted company from the Punchline for about let's see, how many years was I gone? I don't know, probably 12. And then really? I bought it back. I bought it back with Jamie Bendel and his dad in 2002, I believe it was 2002. Yeah, 2002.
Yeah.
and
How does a
ended up.
boy from how does a boy from Cleveland open up a comedy club in Atlanta?
Well, we had nightclubs in Atlanta. My partners or friends first came down to Atlanta, and they opened up a place called the Mad Hatter. It was a club that was an underground Atlanta, and it went well for a while. And then, like all nightclubs, it eventually runs its course. So it ran its
Yeah.
course, and Dave stayed in Atlanta, ran a couple nightclubs there, and Ronnie went to Athens, and I moved to Athens in Georgia and worked at the Mad Hatter in Athens. He opened another club there. We worked there for a long time, and we would go home for Christmas. Okay, and all of us would get on a plane, fly to Cleveland. While we were in Cleveland, we used to go to a club, the Cleveland Comedy Club. It was in downtown Cleveland. At that time, one of the worst areas in Cleveland, probably that there was. But the comedy club there, every time we went, was packed. The place
Yeah.
was outrageous from about 1980, I think, when we started going there. And then I think it was maybe 79. And then I think in the summer or the winter of 80, we just decided, a club in Atlanta would probably do well. And it took us a while to find the location, but eventually we did. And it was magic from the time we opened up. It was amazing. I mean, we were the first club to open in the South, period.
Yeah.
Then it blew up. The '80s comedy boom was something to see.
Yeah. I remember when I was doing the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale. And, I just was getting started. And the story. My uncle was a comic for 35 years on Miami Beach, Tubby Boots.
Right.
And I didn't do it because I thought I wanted to be Tubby Boots, or that I thought I was going to make a living at being a comic. I knew better, but I wanted to do it because I also had some acting chops that I wanted to see improvisationally what I could do on stage and kind of get over my fear of being on stage and a bunch of other things. And it worked out okay. I mean, it worked out okay. But boy, did I see some people come through those doors as you did in Atlanta. And three of these gentlemen that we're about to talk about, actually four, came through the comic strip, and they also came through this. I believe that all four of them worked for you in Atlanta at one time or another.
Oh, yeah.
And four gentlemen that we lost. Norm and Bob and I went to school together in Los Angeles. Louis and Gilbert. Gilbert was the one that caught me off surprise the most. So did Bob, but that was a while ago back, 6 weeks ago. But I didn't know Gilbert was sick. I didn't know that he suffered from muscular dystrophy. He always appeared happy-go-lucky. And people who knew him for 40 years will say, I just recently saw Bill Maher. They said, I've known him for 40 years, but I really didn't know him.
Yeah. Well, unless you spend some time with Gilbert, he was, you think he's the character you see on stage, and he's anything but. I mean anything but that character. He's
No.
very shy, introverted. It was, to try and pull a conversation out of him sometimes was tough.
Oh yeah. I remember he lived next door to where Ketch was for a long time. He lived right next door.
Right.
And I don't know if you had anything to do with Ketch well, no, probably not, because this was in the 70s, I believe, the late 70s.
Right. I didn't get into Catch until, let's see, when was I there? 86.
Okay. Yeah, this was before then. He lived next door. There was an apartment complex either right next door or close to it. And they would call him up and say, you got 20 minutes and then you'll be on. He would come down in his robe and pajamas, go in and do a set, and then leave and then go right out again. And he'd say hello to a few people, but he'd basically go right out again. Now, I was not there the night that he did this, though. He came down in his pajamas, turned his back to the audience. And for those of you that are not familiar with comedy clubs, usually there's a brick wall behind the comics. Like behind me here, instead of what this is, it would be a brick wall. He looked straight at the brick wall, did 40 minutes, and with his back to the audience. They laughed like hell. At first, they didn't know what to make of it. And then he left.
Sounds right.
Left. He was an extraordinary talent. And, I don't know. What was the first thing that you got from him when you when he worked at Punchline.
Well, whoa, excuse me.
Whoa.
It's it sounded it was a very strange guy, that's all I can tell you. He was a
Yeah.
strange guy.
Yeah,
So,
he was.
he was difficult, he wasn't difficult to work with. He just didn't know where it's coming from.
Yeah,
To start off.
he would.
I
Yeah.
love the guy. I mean, truly, he was a lot of fun. I have a quick story I'll tell you about him. I was at the LA Improv, okay?
Yeah.
One night, and many years ago, at least 20 years ago. And Emo Phillips was there, Gilbert was there, and both of them, everybody was kind of drinking a little bit, we were all a little buzzed, but Gilbert in particular was pretty buzzed. And Emo said, well, we need to ride back to our hotel. Okay. And I said, okay, well, I'll give you a ride. I was about ready to leave. I said, okay, I'll give you a ride. No problem. So I have Gilbert and Emo in the back seat of my car. That neither one would sit up front. They just both wanted to sit in the back. Gilbert's got a buzz. Gilbert forgets where he's staying. Okay. So I had to drive around Sunset to find the hotel that he was staying in because they weren't sure. Emo wasn't sure either. So I drove around for about a half an hour with those two knuckleheads. And, they're both, I mean, they were both, strange in their own way. And
yeah.
Together, it was like I was ready to blow my brains out at the end of the ride, let me tell you. But it was a lot of fun. And,
I remember Emo when I was doing the Improv when Bud was still the owner.
Right.
I remember Emo coming in one night with Judy Tenuta, and they were really good friends and great friends. But yeah, there were some really crazy people in the business. I mean, I think comedians are gravitate towards comedy because they want to work out something within themselves. About themselves, but Emo was out there, and Judy, God bless her, she's fighting cancer. I think she's beaten it, and and that's absolutely wonderful. Norm Macdonald, one of the nicest guys in the world, will give you the shirt off his back, but man, he loved to gamble.
Oh yeah. Love to drink a bit too.
Yeah. For those of you that are not aware of what we're talking about some comedians who passed away within this last 6 or 7 months. And but the good thing about Norm was he didn't want anybody to know he was sick. He didn't want the world to be aware of that he was sick. He said, hey, this is my private thing. I'm going to go. I'm going to deal with it. And I don't need the whole world to know what I'm going through. And I kind of admired that an awful lot about Norm. But I've seen him do some sets though that I thought, boy, you should have tried this comedy out somewhere else, Norm. You should have really tried this out somewhere else.
Yeah, but he was fearless, and that's, I mean, really, truly, as a comic, I mean, right now it's very kind of difficult to do depending upon what audience you're working in front of.
Yeah.
But I mean, he just didn't care. It was a matter of, okay, well, this is what I'm saying, and if you don't like it, too bad, basically, and that's real hard to do now because you could do that and say you can do a joke, and all of a sudden you don't work anymore. Okay, that's the difference the way things are right now.
They were talking about this the other night. Bill Maher was saying how we have to stop this counterculture, this cancel culture on comics. I mean,
absolutely.
The people on the right have no sense of humor at all, period. So they don't get any jokes at all. They don't understand jokes. They don't understand about jokes. And they want to do this cancel culture, on comedians for what they say and what they do. But there was a time when a comic would go up and he would be a social barometer of what's going on in the world, in the country, politically, and in the entertainment industry. You would say something, people would laugh. You wouldn't get slapped for it, number one. Number two, you wouldn't get put on television for it. Where every night Jimmy Kimmel and Tucker Carlson are going at each other left and right. Or this chick from Atlanta area, Georgia, is Marjorie Taylor Greene or something. They don't get humor.
Sweetheart, isn't she?
I'm telling you. Well,
to believe that she's actually real is tough. You know?
Oh, it is. It is very tough. As a matter of fact, I heard from a friend of mine that lives just outside of Atlanta because he's a big Atlanta Braves fan. He likes to rub it into me about my Phillies. And he said, Gary, she's up against some real tough competition now for this reelection situation. And he said, I don't think she's going to get reelected. A lot of people in her district are really fed up with her nonsense and the lies and the BS that goes on. But when is this going to end? When is this cancel culture going to end? When are they going to finally realize it's a joke? Mort Saul would have never made it in today's society.
Not at all.
Not
at all.
Lenny Bruce would have never made it.
You were talking about your uncle,
yeah.
Bobby Boots. I meant to tell you, I saw him one time in Miami Beach at the Beachcomber. Okay, at the Beachcomber Hotel. It was so funny because in the summertime, and I know you know this well, that Miami Beach back then was the cheapest place to get a hotel room in the country. And back then, I mean, my friends and I were broke most of the time, so I was there. God, it had to be like 70, 71 maybe, and we would stay at the Beachcomber. If we got any money together, we'd stay at the Beachcomber for like a week or two. And it was, and this is no exaggeration, it was $5 a night to stay at the hotel.
Holy crap.
And they had the lounge downstairs, and that's where your uncle was. Okay. And Martin and Rossi played there. I mean, a ton of people played that. Yeah. The lounges along Miami Beach. It was incredible back then, And I forget what the name of the place was on 163rd Street.
It had the red and white awnings out in front. The Castaways.
Yeah, Castaway. I saw. Let's see, what the hell was his name? Wayne Cochran. Okay, I saw Wayne Cochran there. Great show. I mean, just a monster performer. Really true. But anyway, that's how old we are. Okay, we remember.
Yes. But yeah, Tubby was on the beach for years and years and years. He was a blue comic. And he used to, and I told you this story when I first started, he used to pay people to come in and heckle me so I'd learn how to deal with an audience, which is a major, I think that's one thing that if there's anybody out there watching this afternoon who's interested in getting into comedy, that's the number one thing you have to learn to deal with is an audience. And nowadays you really have to learn how to deal with an audience because, man, people will just, if you say one thing about this or that, they're on you right away and they don't let you get away with anything. And I just don't know when it's going to get back to humor is humor. It's funny. It's a social commentary. Yes, there's some truth involved in the humor, but when are we going to get back to it? Because you have to be seeing it right at the punchline in Atlanta right now.
Oh yeah. The funny thing is, it's like, it shouldn't be dangerous. You know what I mean? To be a performer, and people take this stuff seriously sometimes. I'll give you a quick example. My son actually was working in Sarasota at McCurdy's a couple years ago. Okay. And he did a joke about Trump. He said something about Trump, and some guy in the audience was furious with him. I mean, to the point where he tried to follow him outside. Okay. He wanted to fight him. And it was like, wait a minute, it was a joke. It wasn't anything even bad. That was just, it was a joke. And, people get so serious about crazy stuff like that. And it's not supposed to be like that. I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened in America to make
well, the religious right took over. Books are being banned. Now they're worried about the CRT process where they say the reason they don't like it is because it's making America out to be this bad country and everything. Look, we are America. We're a great country, but we've done things that we haven't exactly been on the up and up with either. Now, we're not Russia, we're not China, but there's a lot of things that we've done through the CIA and the FBI over the years that don't add up either. And with the mask or don't mask or do this or do that. And it wasn't just Trump. Trump just let people know, hey, go out there and scream and yell and all these Karens and everything else out there. And they've taken all the fun out of everything. I mean, they just don't have a sense of humor, and they don't want to have a sense of humor. They wear it on their sleeve. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible to me. It really is. And, I feel bad for anybody who's out there like your son. I was talking to Will Schreiner, and he hasn't done any sets now in a while. He hasn't performed anywhere. But he said, man, it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. His own son's doing comedy, as you well know, out in Los Angeles. And it's a very sad time. But I mean, I can go back and think about, well, George Carlin. Boy, Carlin would not go over anywhere right now.
Not really at all. It's a shame. It really is.
Oh, it absolutely is.
It's like we try. I mean, our stage is basically open to everybody. We try and get people up there. If they offend people, so be it. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And, that's just the way it's going to be. And if you don't like it, you can just leave, or you don't have to buy a ticket to come.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing about banning anything. Okay, the easiest way to ban anything is, first of all, don't buy it. Okay, if there's a book you don't want your kid to read, don't buy it and put it in the house. Okay,
right.
There's curriculum in a school. The school's here's your curriculum. If you don't like the curriculum, try and work through the school and figure out which one's best for all the children that are in the school. Right. And if you don't like that, and then move. I mean, you have options all the time. Nobody forces you to do anything here except pay taxes in the United States. Beyond that, you're pretty much free to do almost anything you want.
I think everybody's gotten this freedom that, well, we don't trust the government to begin with, and this guy over here who was president is telling us that you can't trust the government, and he proved it by being elected president of the United States. When young comics audition, because you have open mic night at the Punchline, what are you getting nowadays? I mean, I don't like dirty humor, number one, especially if it's a female doing dirty humor. Amy Schumer is sort of skirting it now because she's a little more famous than others. But there are some that I get on Facebook that I look at there, and I'm not even going to mention names, and it's like every other word is the F-bomb or this or that or that. And I'm thinking, you're not funny. You're just not funny. So what are you seeing out there?
The problem is that a lot of female comics work real blue. I mean, it's amazing, that so many of them do, and I guess it's accepted in a lot of places. I mean, there's a couple I know of that are doing well now that don't, and are very clever about what they're doing, but it's not the avenue to success for sure.
No, I mean,
you can't wear blue right now and see if you try and get ahead. I mean, established guys have, but even they're having a hard time. Like Jim Norton. Okay, yeah. Jimmy is, I've always liked him, but he's also filthy. You know what I mean? And he's not everybody's cup of tea, but there's enough niche audience on there that, generally you can find an audience if you're funny. That's pretty much the bottom line. If you're funny, you're in good shape, but it takes a while. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I mean, it's certainly not. I mean, I think it's a 10-year process, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it once before when you were on my show. We're talking to Chris DiPetta. He's the owner of the Punchline in Atlanta. He's also Billy Gardell's agent. Tonight, there'll be the new show on.
Don't affiliate me with agents. Okay.
He's a manager. He's a manager.
Please. Yes.
He's a manager for Billy Gardell. He's managed an awful lot of comics over the years. Billy has a show. Bob loves Abishola. Do I have that last name right?
Hart's Abishola. Bob Hart Abishola.
Oh, Bob's
it's Bob Hart's Abishola.
Oh, Bob Hart's Abishola. It's on at 8:30 on CBS, I think is what you said.
Yes.
And so tune into that. But it's funny about a lot of, like I said, a lot of comics. My buddy Mark Riccondonna, who I know I put in touch with you, and I don't really do that. By the way, Peter Vogel said to say hello. He's been on the show.
I saw him in Delray Beach last month.
Why didn't you tell me you were in Delray? We could have got together because I'm only up
there. So with my wife, we went down there. I had my girl Candice Gardino, who was doing Italian bread at the Meisner in Boca, and then at the Delray Beach Playhouse, and she did the show there, and that's where I saw Peter. He showed up over there.
Yeah, Peter's great. He's been on the show. He's going to continue to be on the show, and my business partner Rick Del Vecchio is helping with getting him booked in some of the theaters in South Florida because his show, is a fantastic show directed by Chaz Palminteri. I remember sitting at a table at the Improv. Remember the old Improv?
Sure.
By the way, this is, as I said, Chris DiPetta, the owner of the Punchline in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm Gary Allen. This is Main Street. We're on at a new time today at 3 o'clock. We'll be back next Tuesday at 2 p.m. With some more great guests. But I sat there listening to Leno one night talk to comedians, young comedians such as myself, and he said, I will just give you this bit of advice. You work clean, you work everywhere. You work dirty, you work a few places. And that was back in the 80s.
Yeah, and he believes he always stuck to that philosophy too. That was something he goes, there's a lot of people in Middle America, and Jay, he used to get a lot of criticism for not being, a biting comic. When he had when he had the Tonight Show, when he was on his Tonight Show, a lot of young comics didn't understand what Jay Leno was and how great a comic he was. Okay, but until you see Jay work or you saw Jay do his whole act, it was amazing. I mean, probably one of the best I've ever seen anywhere at any time, and I'm talking 45 years worth of experience watching comedians. Pound for pound, every 8 to 10 seconds there was a laugh in his act, and then towards the end, the last 5 to 6 minutes, it was about every 4 seconds there was a laugh. And he worked it like
he worked it like a violinist on a Stradivarius.
Yeah, unbelievable.
And I've known Jay since I was 9 or 10 years old, and because of my family being from New England, and of course his family being from just outside of the Boston area, and he's always been very kind to me. He's been very nice. I did a Jay Leno thing in Las Vegas, as you know, for a number of years where I impersonated Jay. And we always had fun with it. I got a quick story to tell you. I don't know if I told you this one or not before. We were at, where were we? We were at a restaurant in one of the hotels. Was it? Yeah, it was the Mirage, where he would perform all the time. And we were having lunch, and some woman passes by with her family, and she looks over and she sees me. Now, I'm in a sport coat and everything. And back then I had my hair combed back, if you remember, and I looked an awful lot like Jay back then. She comes running up. Now, I'm here. She's coming at me. Jay is sitting like where you would be on the opposite side of the table. She doesn't see him, and she wants to take a picture with Jay Leno. Oh, please, will you take a picture with my husband and my family of Jay Leno? And I said, excuse me, ma'am, I'm very flattered, but this gentleman right here, this is the real Jay Leno. I'm just a good friend who happens to look like him. And she looks over at him and she goes, oh, yeah, he looks nice, but Mr. Leno, could you please take a picture with us? So he sits there and she hands the camera to Jay. Would you take this picture with Mr. Leno and my family? And he goes, yeah, sure, I'll be happy to do that. So she takes the picture. They go away. The waitress comes with him to sign the bill for our lunch. And he says, I said, well, I'll leave a nice tip. He said, yeah, you better leave a nice tip, Jay Leno, because I'm putting this on your room tab. Oh, he's so funny. I actually got to go to his garage numerous times.
Right.
And have you had a chance to go to his garage?
I've been there. Yep.
Oh,
I went there with Billy. We did a show. Billy did a show with him, and so I got to spend the day in his garage.
Oh, isn't it a fantasy? It's a fantasy land, isn't it? Isn't it? Well, that's a big old aircraft hangar.
Yeah.
That's a big old aircraft hangar, and people don't.
That's not just one; it's 4. It's crazy how many cars. I mean, and they're all running. They're all perfect, and they all run. Every car in this garage, other than the ones that are in the garage next door, that they actually work on cars. But the ones that are in the showroom are perfect.
Yeah, and he builds cars for people. He restores automobiles, and he always has people out there looking around for cars at car auctions and stuff, or they find them in the most obscure places in the world. A car sitting in a barn since 1937. It's in pretty decent shape since 1937. He buys the car and he restores it. He's got 4 Duesenbergs that came off the showroom floor. I think he has 2, 3, 1, 3, 4, and 5. He's missing one of the first 5.
Yeah.
He's missing one of the.
He was working on one when I was there. He was working on a Duesenberg when in between takes, he would go, he'd be working on a car. I mean, that's what he does. That's,
Yeah.
that's his hobby,
Yeah.
working on cars.
Yeah, that's what he loves to do. And that's the amazing thing. A lot of people think comics, and a lot of them are. A lot of comics don't do much except write joke. Bob Saget was like that. Bob, God rest his soul, was a workaholic. He was nothing but writing jokes. And Jay, when he did the Tonight Show, he would stay up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning writing jokes, get up in the early morning, work on the car, then go into NBC and he'd get ready for the show for that night. But a lot of comics do a lot of things other than just being a comic. I just want to say, I just want to thank the Japanese Garden for being one of our community sponsors, as well as the Elks Lodges of South Florida. And tune in next week. We have a very interesting guest for you, and I'll fill you in on that before the end of the show if I have a few minutes. But we'll be back next week, 2 p.m., our regular time. This is Main Street with Chris DiPetta, Gary Allen with you. And Chris will be back with us again. He's one of my dear friends. As I was saying earlier, what are you seeing now with comics? You said that you're seeing a lot of female comics that are blue. Do you ever bother to give advice, or you just like, well, let them go with their career? Because I know when Amy Schumer started out, she would do a little bit blue, but now, whoa! I mean, Amy's kind of gone crazy with it,
I mean, for her, it worked. I mean, she when she first worked for us, she came as a feature actor. I forget who she worked with. And she came in, she featured. Then the next time she was there, I saw she wrote, like 15, 20 minutes of material, and she crushed. I mean, she did really well. And then she came back again 6 months later, and she was working way blue. It was so much bluer than she was. But obviously it worked out for her. Okay. I mean, she was one of those situations where it worked. And, it's hard to put your finger on what actually is going to make someone pop out there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some great comics that have been doing this 30 years that are not household names. I mean, we know probably 100 of them, probably 1,000 maybe.
Yeah.
And but they're excellent comics. You can put them in front of a room, they'll kill. But TV or movies have nothing to do with them. It just doesn't work out.
No.
But it's for her, it worked out really well. And there's a couple of people, every so often someone, comes up through the ranks and, gets on his show. A lot of times now I'm seeing a lot of comics come up probably faster than there should, by way of podcasts or, a YouTube video or a TikTok video, something like that. May bring someone, and, the agencies and production companies, they're jumping on that stuff.
Yeah.
They see someone who's 5 minutes funny and they're just ready to give them a show. And it happens a lot. And, a lot of times, sometimes it's successful and other times it's a very quick run.
I remember when I lived in LA, and you know this very well, the East Coast comics would come to Los Angeles specifically, A, to try to get on a Tonight Show.
Right.
B, to try to get a sitcom, because back then they were casting sitcoms left and right. And C, to enhance their career, to bring in more money for their personal appearances, whether it be at a college or whatever. And that's another thing. Are comics still doing colleges anymore, or is that pretty much done
a
with?
lot of comics have stopped doing colleges. I mean, they just, first of all, they just don't feel that the college kids know anything. That's one of the things. I mean, I remember Seinfeld said that he wouldn't work at college again just because, they just miss it. That sense of humor just isn't there.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I mean, I truly don't. I mean, there are comics that make their living working colleges, of course, but they stay working colleges. They don't go anywhere else. They can make a decent living just working colleges, not going anywhere else. It happens all the time. But, I always feel that that's kind of a dead end. And the same thing with really kind of working ships as well. There's comics that make a living. I mean, they're making, they make more money than a lot of people do in, normal life. But they live on a ship most of their life.
I worked on a ship for 2.5 years when Tubby was an entertainer on the Emerald Seas. And this was before cruise ship stuff became what it is today. Today, you look at them and they look like they're all square. They look like floating hotels to me. That's all. They don't look like a ship anymore. They just look like a barge with a hotel on top of it, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much about it. And I would never do that again. Now I know comics that do it, but also too, I heard this, Chris. I don't know if this is true. Maybe I'll have to call Don Casino's agency down here in Miami and find out for sure if this is true. Um, when a comic or a performer reaches a certain age now and they start getting this stuff that you and I have, they're no longer booked on these ships because the audiences are younger, 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 and they figure the gray hair is going to turn people off. I guess I don't know. I don't know if that's
Well,
true or not.
I mean, I think it's on the younger boats that may be true, like the carnivals and things like that. But the older ships, the princesses and things like that, the older comics are fine. They do okay. It's like, I mean, you can age out. There's no question about it. What they've done is a lot of comics have aged out of clubs. That's
Yeah.
really the biggest area where they're aging out of. And everybody gets mad at me because I say that. And it's like, okay, I'm still funny. I can do this. Yeah, but unfortunately, the audience that you're working to, primarily is 20 to 35. If you're talking about comedy clubs in particular, maybe 40.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you start having a life. You have you have a house. You have kids. You got to get a babysitter if you go out, or you have a job that you have to go to. So during the week, like we used to do a lot of big shows during the week, we can't do. And the older comics they just don't draw anymore because
Yeah.
they're not on TikTok, they're not on YouTube, they're not big in podcasting or things like that. And it's unfortunate because they're great comics. I mean, terrific comedians, but
Oh yeah.
I can't change the world. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Me being a club owner, I have to go with the trend and put in people that maybe not are my favorites, but I know can do business for us.
Yeah. I mean, it's not always because you think they're funny. It's
Oh,
what
no.
it's like when I called you up to do this show. Number one, you're a friend of mine and a dear friend, and I love having you on, and I love talking comedy with you and some serious stuff. But I also have to think of my audience, and I know my audience will enjoy listening from Chris DiPetta, and what you have to say. I remember hearing about a young guy who was a ventriloquist named Jeff Dunham.
Sure.
Now, I never saw him big, but I heard from friends of mine in LA, like Glenn, hey, there's this guy, da da da, and for some reason he just can't get any traction, and he's very good, he's super talented, blah 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 blah. Now he's selling out rooms all over the world.
Right.
And then there's Fluffy. I mean, come on, you can't tell me that Fluffy isn't the funniest thing.
That's great. Gabriel is great. He truly is. He's a terrific comic. Nice kid too. Really nice guy.
And he's funny, and he's not dirty. He's not dirty at all. Now, his specials at least aren't, and he's a funny guy. Brian Regan, a young man who I'm not a big fan of at all in any way, shape, or form, but he sells out auditoriums. He sells out college.
And really now, Sebastian Maniscalco he's probably the biggest comic going in the country. I mean, he sells out. He's doing arena tours. He sold out Madison Square Garden 5 nights in a row. Okay,
Wow.
That's phenomenal. Okay, it really is, and he is. He's kicking it. I mean, he's doing terrific. But again, a nice guy. Very funny, very much like Brian Regan, in the same kind of vein as Brian.
Yeah.
And Brian's doing well. Sebastian's doing monstrously well. Okay.
Yeah, Brian and I, he got started around the same time I did at the comic strip, but I worked with his brother Dennis at Eastern Airlines when we were skycaps checking luggage in on the curb. And this is a cool story. If you ever run into Dennis, you can repeat this story. He took a leave of absence from Eastern Airlines. I think it was 6 weeks or 8 weeks leave of absence. And he was going to write a book on golf. He loved to play golf.
Yeah.
So he comes back to work the first morning, and we're all looking and anything. He's not saying anything, and we're real busy. So we didn't get a chance to talk. During a break, I walk over. I said, so how far did you get with your book? He said, never wrote a damn word down, but I played a lot of golf. So I said, I guess the book is out the window. And he said, yeah. And then when he started doing comedy, I went, well, I know he's funny. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big Brian Regan fan. I'm just not for, and it goes back to things that he did when he first got started. It just kind of irked me and still do to this day. And you can understand that. But I said, when I heard that he was doing comedy, I went, well, I know he's funny, but I mean, he's got to go up against his brother. And then I heard those two kind of teamed up and palled around together for a long time. Now, I don't know if they still do shows together or whether they've separated and he does his thing and he does his. But Dennis was just so funny. So if you ever run into Dennis, you can tell him that story about throwing bags at Eastern Airlines. He so funny. It's sort of like why Glenn Hirsch was going to be on this show. You know, when you got the bomb scare at the punchline and Glenn's on stage.
Absolutely. And I mean, really and truly, that was one of the funniest moments ever. You know, I leaned over, I came out of the green room, which was right next to the stage, and because I was going, psst, psst, and Glenn was doing his act, not paying attention. And all of a sudden he just stopped and just came over and kind of leaned into where the green room door was. And I told him, I said, Glenn, I said, you really don't have to rush, but somebody called in a bomb scare and we need to clear the house, but wait about 20 minutes and then we'll clear the house, because I wanted to get the full show in so I didn't have to refund any money. Okay. And the guy who called in said we had an hour. Okay. He said in an hour a bomb will go off. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we're 20 minutes into the show. If we do at least 40, we can clean that house out and get everybody, out, and it'll be safe. So
but I can just see Glenn on stage,
Yeah, and Glenn kind of tiptoed back to the stage. He did about 3 more minutes, and he goes, "Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap it up, and we probably need to clear the house as fast as you possibly can." He got off the stage, and so we cleared the house. I mean, we got everybody out, and naturally there was no bomb there, but the cops went through with the dogs. I mean, they sniffed everything. They went through the whole place, up, down. It wasn't very big, so it was pretty easy to check out.
Yeah.
So we checked out everything. And meanwhile, we had another show. That was the middle show. Okay. And on a Saturday night, we were doing 3. So I had everybody out in the parking lot, waiting for the building to blow up if it was going to blow up. But, nothing happened. So as soon as the cops gave the all clear, we said, okay, come on this way. And we did a 3rd show.
Oh, wow.
That's what a good club owner does. Okay. That's what he just keeps the show going.
But I can just see Glenn on stage, and he was probably still very thin. He still is thin to this day, and he's probably shaking in his boots. A bomb scare. I can just hear him. I can just hear him. But he's such a funny guy. Talk about some comics that you saw over the years. The first go around at the punchline or out on the road, and you go, yeah, they've got it. And then the next time you saw him, you went, no. They don't have it. Beginners what?
Well, unfortunately, it was the 80s. So I saw a lot of guys just destroy themselves with drugs. You know what I mean? It's like, John Fox comes to mind as one that I thought was funny, and just, he was ruined because of, cocaine or whatever he happened to be doing at the time. Yeah. I mean, guys who started with us, or not started, but were at the club at different times. We watched, Gary Shandling. Okay. Gary Shandling, when he first came there, he played the club probably 3 times over a couple of years. And Gary was just crushingly funny in a very quiet kind of way. It wasn't like he wasn't a loud guy, but it was just his material was so good. And he was just genuinely funny. I mean, plus great to hang out with. It's funny and a little insecure, certainly about his hair, which we'd razz him about all the time.
Yeah.
But it would be so much fun to do that. And, Jerry Seinfeld played our club a number of times, and early on, we're talking, I found a contract that I had with Jerry when he first played the club. And back then we're talking 7 shows. Okay. It was $2,500 is what we paid him. Okay.
Wow.
And that was the most money we paid anybody. I mean, seriously, him. And then when our first anniversary, we had Jay Leno come in. Okay. Mm-hmm. And Jay made a ton. He made $4,000 for 7 shows. And it was, I look back at that now and I go, oh my God, because it's nothing. That's no money whatsoever.
Nah,
Yeah,
nah.
back then headliners were making, maybe for us, we do 7 shows a week, and they were making maybe 900 to 1,200 bucks, sometimes 1,500.
Yeah.
Beyond that, not much more than that. I mean, that was a lot of money. But 7 shows, comics don't do 7 shows anymore. I mean, comedy clubs I'm talking about now in
No.
particular.
How many comedy clubs would you say are around now compared to what it was in the 80s? I mean, back in the 80s, there were thousands of them every place.
Well,
Would you say maybe a couple hundred now?
yeah, I would think a couple hundred. A couple Improv has 25. I think the Funny Bone has 15. Helium is a growing chain, and I don't know I think they have 7 rooms now. And there's a lot of independent rooms in different cities. Zanies is around, and Stand Up Live, different places.
I know.
So
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
full-time clubs probably 150.
A few months ago, I think it was a few months ago or a few weeks ago, you had said something on Facebook that caught my eye. How you were going over a list of venues that were booking comics for the summer, for summer festivals and things like that. And you said, and you're the one that wrote it, so if I'm quoting you wrong, correct me.
Believe me, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I know. Aren't there any other comics out there? I think was more or less the premise that you were getting to, because it was the same guys going from point A to point B to point C, and there was nothing new, no fresh names, no nothing. And you were like, what's going on here?
I said what I said was there are 20 comics that are in every festival in the country, or out of the country for that matter. We're talking about in Just for Laughs and in different places. Now Just for Laughs is Moon Tower in Austin, but so many of the festivals have the same names. And I get it, don't get me wrong, because you got to put the guys that draw to try and bring people out to these festivals. I mean, as a promoter, I understand what they're doing. I'm not trying to say that it's bad, and I'm not saying that comics are bad, but it seems to me there's a lot more comics out there. And all right, go ahead and put 5 guys that are going to draw and put everything in there. Because really, why would anybody go to another festival if they've been to one festival?
Right.
You don't have to go. I guess it's for every city. You want to see this many comics in every city. It's a tour. So ultimately, that's what it becomes. It's a tour of these comics for every city. So I just put the name of the festival in that particular city, and that's what it is. But that's what it seems like to me anyway. And I could be. I don't think I'm dead wrong. But if you look, you'll see it.
Have we reached the point? We were talking earlier about blue comics. Are we going to reach a point, like everything else in this world, where people start to say to the male and female comics that are blue, and some of them are, I mean, above and beyond blue. They're just plain, you know what I'm saying, Chris?
Yeah.
They're just filthy. Are we going to get to the point where we start to, as a society, say, we're not prudes, but I didn't come here for that. I did, it's like when I go to church, I don't go to church for the preacher to tell me who to vote for on Tuesday's election. I go there to hear the word, and believe it or not, people find it difficult to believe that I have a great deal of faith. I'm a faith-based person. But are we going to get to that point before too long? Because I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not mentioning her name. She does a lot of these roasts. She's kind of tall and skinny and blonde hair. And she's dirty as can be. And I've seen her acts out there. And she's a pretty girl. I mean, she's attractive. Right. But I wonder what she's like off stage. I mean, I've seen her on with Stern and everything, and she doesn't seem to pull back any. Are we going to get to the point in society where we say, okay, a little double entendre, a little here, but enough of this filth, enough of this crap. We don't need the F-bomb every other word.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, if you're going to bring your audience in, okay? I mean, they're going to have their audience. If they like it, they're going to have it, okay? I mean, no one's forcing you to go see somebody, okay? Mm-hmm. Number one. Okay, you kind of know how they are. If you have anything on the internet whatsoever, you know what a comic is. I mean, if you hear a name, you can go click on 5 to 10 minutes of that comic. So you're not going to be shocked. I mean, for me, it's all about, are you clever? okay? Because you can be a little dirty and kind of naughty, I think is the word I like better. Okay.
Okay.
You can be naughty and be incredibly funny. Okay, but you don't have to be filthy because you limit your audience and there's no reason to.
Yeah.
I mean, America's a big place. There's a lot of people, and now I think more comics they work to a niche audience. I mean, you don't know household names anymore because comics are working. There are certain comics that it kind of everybody knows. Okay, certainly now Chris Rock, everybody knows.
Yeah, yeah.
Even
If you didn't
before,
before, you know.
now.
You know what a lot of people don't know though, and you know this, there's been bad blood between Chris Rock and him to begin with for years. There's
But
been
I really didn't know that much. I thought they were close at one time, and
yeah,
but I know he made jokes about him before. But that's Chris. I mean, that's and Chris is really not a mean spirited guy at all. Okay, he's a real gentle guy. He truly is. I mean, he's a little guy. He's certainly not going to be a tough guy.
no.
But he is biting. I mean, he could really get to people. And I don't know if people noticed when after he got smacked, he stood there and really bit his tongue on what he could have done, because I mean, he could have sliced him up like a peach
Yeah.
if he wanted to on stage, because he certainly had the audience. And he just, he was very cool about what he did and said, okay, I'll just move on and just, for as far as I can see, I'm sure he wasn't thinking this, but that's about a $10 million or $20 million special on Netflix, as far as, okay, I'm going to talk about this now
Yeah. Yeah.
and let it go, because,
Yeah.
it's just what happened there is unforgivable. I'm sorry. That's so stupid. And you
Well,
just basically showed your rear end on national television, by swearing at him after that.
a couple of actors have come forward to work with Will Smith and said that he's not exactly Mr. Household nice guy next door. He's got a temper and he's used it on the sets of a lot of movies and stuff. But the host of Saturday Night Live a week later, a gentleman of color, came out in a white suit and he was funny. He said, "I know you people want me to talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it. I can't talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And I'm not going to talk about it. So let's not talk about it." And he went on for like 10 minutes how he's not going to talk about it, but you knew he was talking about it. And he was funny as all get out. Chris, we got about 10 minutes. By the way, one comic that I used to tell people, be very careful. They would come to me and they would say, "Hey, I bought tickets to go see Bob Saget. My wife and my kids were going to go see Bob Saget." and I would say, "Listen, do yourself a favor. If you and your wife want to go see him, that's one thing. But invite two adult friends. Don't take your kids." And they'd say, "Well, come on." I go, "He's not Danny Tanner. He's never been Danny Tanner. He's always been." When I spoke to him 8 months ago, we were telling dirty jokes back and forth. He was never Danny Tanner. I mean,
he's always been like that. And and that's the great thing about him. It's that was a real character. Danny Tanner was a character. Had nothing to do with Bob Saget. Okay?
No. I mean, when you talk about having a menage a trois with the Olsen twins in your act, you are not Danny Tanner anymore. You are just not Danny Tanner anymore. And did you ever see that roast that they did on him, with Stamos was the MC?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. And what's her name? She was in the Mary Tyler Moore show. Cloris Leachman.
Cloris Leachman. Yeah.
Cloris just tore Stamos up. I mean, she just ripped him a new one. It's funny. I love the roasts. I really do. They some of them are funny, some of them are not. But some of them are not. We've got a little bit of time remaining. And I wanted to tell you this because I've told you this on the phone numerous times. Do you know how many times I've had you on my show now 4 or 5 times. God bless you, and you'll come back again, I know. How many people will say
to me, Gary, I meant to tell you. No, we're all done.
Good night, Gary. Good night. We're out of here.
It wasn't fair. I just want to.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. Mic drop. Chris is out. Yeah, how many people will say to me, "Can I get in touch with him through you? Can I do it?" And I go, "Look, I've only done this twice. and I leave it alone because I don't push our friendship. I just don't. And how many people say to me, "How in the name of God did you meet Chris DiPetta?" I said, "I don't know. I was standing on a street corner one day, and I had my cup with my pencils in there, and he dropped a couple of quarters in, and he's felt sorry for me ever since." I mean, it's just
Yes.
unbelievable how many people want to get to meet you and want to know you. That's why I said you're the kingmaker.
You know, it's so funny now because I run into that, and Billy Gardell does this to me all the time. You know, he is if we're out somewhere and we're in a group of if there are comics around, if we're doing something at a club or a show somewhere, and there's
Yeah.
comics around, and Billy will always go. He goes, "You know what you guys need to do?" He goes, "You need to talk to my manager because he loves talking to young comics and tell you how to build your career." So they all come flocking to me, and he's like, to get rid of him, to get off of him. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
thanks a lot. Okay, thanks
yeah,
for that.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
they would yeah.
Well,
They would do that with Tubby. People would come up to Tubby. He would do these amateur contests. And the last one that he did before he died, I would have to drive him because he didn't drive anywhere. And I said to him, "I will drive you for this last time. But if some little 8-year-old smartass gets up on stage and sings My Way, I'm out of there and you're taking a cab home." I've had it with these My Way guys. So the whole show goes by, and there's only one kid left, some kid, Bobby Schwartz from Miami Beach. And I'm thinking to myself, and Tubby looks at me and he says, "Well, no My Way so far, so I guess you're driving me home." I said, "Okay, fine, but there's this one kid left. Let's see what he does." He does one song, it's fine. I give him a clap. Let's do another song. He sings My Way. I literally got up, walked out the door. Now, I didn't leave Tubby there, but I mean, I walked out and Tubby just looked at me and he said, "You're very serious about this." So I don't know. What do you got coming up at the Punchline, and what's Billy got cooking? Is he got besides the TV show? What else?
Billy is about to wrap Bob Hart's Abishola. He said one more week. They had to push it a little bit because they had some COVID scares along the way at the show, and I think every show in LA had a week or two where they had to push because they had someone with COVID or someone tested positive.
Yeah.
True or not, a lot of the tests were false, but they still, even if it says you're positive and you don't have it, guess what? You got to quarantine for a week. So, but that happened. But he's wrapping that up. And summertime, I think he's going to take a vacation. I think he's done. Okay, as far as that goes. Me in particular, this summer, I'm probably going to go to Chicago for about a week or so, and then travel around, and we'll, I'll see. I might go to the comedy festival in Los Angeles, the Netflix special, which is a comedy special, which I think is at the end of April and 1st of May. It's huge. It's another one with a lot of familiar names, I might add. So just
Yeah.
they're going to welcome me with open arms.
Here we are. Yeah.
A lot of my friends will be there, so I'll be doing that. And as far as the Punchline concerned, I don't even know what the schedule is there. We have so many good people coming up. It's
right.
We have surprise guests because it's our 40th anniversary. And so we have people that are popping in that are coming out of nowhere. People that were friends of the clubs for a long time are coming, doing a night or two. And, Foxworthy did it a couple of weeks ago. Bill Burr is going to do us a favor and come by and work for us. We have Craig Robinson is going to come by. So, you just have to keep your eyes open. And we always have good shows. So, we're doing what we can.
You know what I'd love to do sometime? I don't know if it's ever going to be possible, but I'd love to come up to Atlanta and sit down with you one-on-one, and also have some comics in like Jeff or Steve or some of the other guys over the years, and just do a special on the Punchline, and just have something in the can that you can always put out there. That would be great. One afternoon, sit down in a circle with you guys.
I'd love to do that. Actually, I have a documentary out called "If These Walls Could Talk." It's the 33rd. It was the 33rd year of the Punchline when we did it. It's really good. You can see it on. I think it's on Amazon. I'm not 100% sure, but it's called "If These Walls Could Talk," and it's a really interesting. A lot of people are in it. John Oliver, Billy, Jeff, a lot of people that started at the Punchline. J. Anthony Brown. So we had a really nice lineup.
Yeah, well, I'd love to be able to do that maybe somewhere down the line. We're out of time, my friend.
All right, Gary, I appreciate it. As I always, I always love to come on. You know that.
Yes, I do, and God bless you. You are a dear, dear friend, Chris DiPetta. owner of the Punchline and a manager of Billy Gardell. And please, watch Bob Hart's Abishola. Watch the show. It's a good show. It's a funny
CBS. Don't forget
CBS. Chris, thank you so very, very much. And before we get out of here, I just want to say this. I want to thank everybody involved for tuning in this week. I know it was a special time, a special day. My executive producer, Rick Del Vecchio, studio producer today was Mike, along with Michael and Grant Miller. Thank you for giving me this platform on the C News Network, along with the Japanese Garden and the Elks Clubs of South Florida. Thank you for being our community sponsors and continuing to support this program. I appreciate it very much. We'll be back next week at 2 p.m. on Tuesday with another special guest. I'm running out of time. You'll find out who that is. If you're on Facebook, you'll know exactly who it is, but I will tell you it's a doctor. So there will be one in the house. So until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other.